Chapter 2301. Mr. Knowles, does your wife know you're meeting your lover privately in a hotel? Knowles looked at the crowd that had filled the whole corridor outside the door with a gloomy expression. At Basberg, at Black Gold. Leonardo hurried into the office. Mr. Goldmann, Mr. Knowles seems to have gotten into some huge trouble. Colton stopped flipping through the documents in his hands and lifted his gaze. What happened? Leonardo handed a magazine to him. He took it from him, skimmed through it, and his expression dimmed. Hashtag the Goldman's son-in-law, Knowles, was found meeting with an unknown woman in a hotel behind his wife's back, and the woman was suspected of having just taken a bath because she only had a bath towel on. Hashtag. Colton threw the magazine on the table. Leonardo looked at him and said cautiously, "This news is spreading like wildfire because of all the media companies featuring it. Twitter's algorithm has also gone crazy over the past few hours, and Miss Vanderbilt's Twitter comment section has also been lit on fire." After all, Knowles was the son-in-law of the Goldmans. If such a scandal was exposed, how could it not become a phenomenon in Basberg? And the main thing was that the reporters had recorded everything on the spot. Knowles had really gotten himself into a huge predicament. Colton frowned. Has Knowles come out to explain himself? Leonardo shook his head. I've not seen anything so far. Whenever such an incident happened, no one would leave the issue and not tackle it instantly. Yet, he was so complacent that he did not even appear before the public to explain himself immediately. Colton tapped the desk with his fingertips. This incident is fake. Leonardo was shocked. Do you believe in him? Judging from that fella's personality, he's not the type of person who would waste his time to explain things that were created just to frame him. Besides, he got caught red-handed by reporters at the hotel, so coincidentally? With his cautiousness, vigilance, and ability in anti-reconnaissance, if he was really cheating on Daisy, would he give the reporters the opportunity to catch him in action? Although Leonardo felt what Colton said was reasonable, he still felt that something was wrong. You said that Mr. Knowles is a vigilant man, but he was caught and photographed at the scene. Colton fiddled with his pen. Do you know what I admire most about Knowles? Leonardo shook his head. He then answered casually, just when others think that he's become their prey, they've already become his prey. The more illogical Knowles' actions are, the more it shows that a matter doesn't look as simple as it seems to be. Although he already knew something fishy was going on with this matter, he still went to the hotel room, got photographed by reporters, and hasn't responded to anything until now. It's either someone else's scheme has succeeded, or Knowles is turning this matter into another trap of his. Who knows what really happened? At present, the popularity and controversy that were found on the internet had paralyzed the system for some time. Daisy's Twitter account had been tagged by countless netizens and fans who were frantically asking her about her husband's extramarital affair. Some fans even asked Daisy to tweet something to confirm or deny all the speculations that had been spreading online. In the crew, everyone was talking about Knowles. Did Mr. Knowles really cheat on Daisy? But Daisy has such a good family background and looks so beautiful. The woman he was found cheating with doesn't even look half as good as Daisy. The world of the filthy rich isn't something ordinary people can fathom. Even though the wife looks like a goddess, a man would still hook up with an outsider. What men are searching for is novelty. But I think Mr. Knowles treats Daisy very well. Otherwise, why would he come to Karelia to accompany his wife while she's on set? I think coming to Karelia to be on set with her is only a facade. His real intention here is to meet with his mistress. While the discussion was ongoing, Tiffany was going through her script on a folding chair and listening to what the people around her were talking about. She was so nervous that her palms were soaked in a cold sweat. She did not expect that Zafir's way of helping her would cause such a huge wave. It had become a huge sensation on the internet. Chapter 2302. Tiffany actually was the one who knew best whether Knowles had cheated on Daisy or not. After all, that woman who Knowles was found meeting was an unknown influencer that she found online, and Tiffany was the person who paid her to put up a show at the hotel. But thinking of what Zafir had said to her, that was the only way to divert Nala's attention away from herself. She had actually bitten the bullet and done it. If they discover I am involved, that's it. That'll be the end of my acting career, so why should I still care about how things turn out? Daisy is the one to blame for all this. She already has everything we normal humans can't even dream of in our entire lives, yet she just had to set foot in the entertainment industry and compete with us. This incident had been spreading on the internet for 2 days, and the popularity of the topic still had not diminished. However, Daisy still had not responded to anything on Twitter, not even a single word. And no one from Tenet knew the ins and outs of the entire situation, which caused the incident to remain stagnant. The netizens could only rely on speculations and theories as the matter continued to swarm around the internet, and it was only natural for Nolace to be dubbed a cheating scambag. Zafir came to the hospital with a bouquet of flowers and just so happened to run into Nolace as he came out of the ward with a sullen face. He looked at Nolace, and Nolace exchanged gazes with him too. Zafir stopped in front of him. "Mr. Knowles, your scandal is spreading all over the internet. Don't you plan to come out and explain yourself to the public?" Nolace loosened the strap of his watch and smiled. "Call me crazy, but you seem to be paying quite a lot of attention to my affairs, aren't you?" Zafir's expression remained unchanged. "No matter what, Daisy is still my friend, so it's just second nature for me to care about things that are related to her. Keeping an eye on other men's wives at all times isn't a habit that someone of your caliber should have." Nolace lifted his gaze and patted Zafir on the shoulder after saying that. "If you're really as righteous as you portray yourself to be, you shouldn't just appear anywhere near Daisy, coincidentally, just when something goes wrong between us." Zafir pursed his lips and stared at him. Nolace shifted his gaze away from him and left the scene without looking back. Zafir pushed open the door of the ward and saw Daisy sitting on the bed with her arms folded. Her expression did not look too cheerful. He walked into the ward with the bouquet. "Daisy." Daisy looked up at him. "What brought you here?" "I'm worried about you, so I've come to pay you a visit." He inserted the flowers into the vase on the bedside table. Daisy's gaze rolled, but she did not utter a single word. He then sat down in the chair right next to the bed. "Are you okay?" She shrugged. "I'm okay. What could go wrong with me?" Zafir looked at her. "Do you believe in the scandal?" Daisy lowered her gaze and looked bothered. "I don't know." Zafir nodded and leaned back into the chair. "I'm sorry about your condition. After all, I'm the assistant director and didn't realize the problem in time." Daisy gave off a polite smile. "I don't blame you. After all, even Director Fallon didn't notice it." Zafir frowned. "By the way, I've already replaced that actor." She was startled. "Why so?" He explained calmly, "Because we need a young actor with better acting skills to work together with you to complete the filming. After all, the crew didn't want to repeat what happened that day. I'm doing so only for our progression." Daisy did not say anything. Zafir sat quietly for a long time and then slowly got up. "You don't have to bother yourself with all the scandals for the time being. Whether it's true or not, I believe that the truth will eventually emerge." He then left the ward. Daisy stared at his figure as he left, leaned back on the pillow behind her waist, and fell into contemplation. The next day, the bodyguards came to pick Daisy up after she got discharged from the hospital. Daisy wore brown sunglasses and walked out of the hospital under the protection of the bodyguards, while reporters besieging the hospital raced against time to ask her about the future of her marriage. Daisy kept her head down, refused to answer any of the questions, and got into the car with the help of the bodyguards. Chapter 2303. The car drove through the crowd, leaving the pedestrians behind. Daisy took off her sunglasses and leaned against Nala's shoulder. "How could you have the guts to come and pick me up personally? Aren't you afraid of being caught by them?" Nolace looked away from the laptop screen and wrapped his arms around her. "Have I ever been afraid of anything?" Daisy looked at him. "Then what do you plan to do next?" Nolace pecked her forehead and chuckled. "Do you really believe me?" Daisy fiddled with his tie. "If you really cheated on me, Would you tell me about it? After the incident, she was the first person Knowles turned to immediately after the incident. Thus, she chose to believe in Knowles. Someone is setting him up. Knowles has become the target of this scam, so isn't it obvious that someone is trying to sow discord between him and me? Knowles looked at her. What did Zafir say to you when he came to visit you yesterday? Daisy responded, he didn't seem to have said anything useful. By the way, he told me that he's replaced the young actor in the crew. Knowles squinted. He replaced the young actor as soon as this incident happened? This is getting more and more interesting. Knowles brushed her hair and tucked them behind her ear. Daisy, do you want to put on a show with me? She rested her chin on his shoulder and looked at him. What is it about? Knowles approached her and whispered something in her ear. Daisy chuckled. Are you sure that you want to bring the incident to this scale? Knowles pecked her lips lightly. It doesn't matter. As long as you still want to be with me, my reputation is the least of my worries. It's time for me to put your acting skills to the test this time around. She pushed him away gently. You're going to put on a show with the best actress in Zlokovia, so just wait and see. He gave off a profound smirk. Daisy finally updated her Twitter feed with a new tweet. Just when most netizens thought that Daisy would fall out completely with her husband and confirm that he had cheated on her, she went into full-on Twitter warfare with the unknown influencer who was found at the hotel with her husband. Daisy sued the homewrecker in court because she instigated Knowles into marrying her in a bigamous marriage even when she knowingly knew that he already had a spouse. The homewrecker even incited him to secretly transfer the ownership of all her property and assets into his possession. So she demanded the homewrecker return all her property, which was worth $8 million in total. The news instantly bewildered all netizens. This isn't just another extramarital affair, but also bigamy? And the key is that the homewrecker didn't only cheat on Daisy with the husband, but also planned to take all of Daisy's property away from her. After Daisy's plan to file a lawsuit came out through the media, there was a huge uproar on the internet. The unknown influencer's background and identity had been dug up by netizens, including her home address, phone number, and information about her relatives and friends. Homewreckers nowadays are so presumptuous and complacent. It's over for her now. She didn't even consider whose marriage she was getting into. I guess all there's left for her to expect is to be blocked and banned from all sides, right? Why are all the crusades aiming at the homewrecker? Is it right for a man to cheat on his wife? But what the woman did is even worse. The woman knows that the man is married and still wants to get into a bigamous marriage with the man. We can't even regard her as a homewrecker anymore, as she planned to transfer all of Daisy's property behind her back. They're worth $8 million, man. This is not just any extramarital affair, but also a scam, isn't it? Is there a possibility that Daisy's husband actually got framed by someone else? After all, he comes from a prominent family. He's the grandson of Yaramir's king, and let's not forget how rich and handsome he is. Did the woman deliberately set him up because his background and wealth have always been her reason to do so she can use this scam to force him into marrying her? After all, the man will also want to preserve his reputation, so maybe he'll agree to her proposal just because he didn't want the matter to go public. Chapter 2304. At the same time, among the crew in Karelia, Tiffany received a call after she finished her shoot, so she immediately went to a place where there was no one around and answered, "Didn't I tell you not to contact me so casually? Miss Cullen, I've really run out of options, so please help me. I don't even dare to leave my house now. I'm being forced to move, and Miss Vanderbilt is going to sue me in court." The other party sounded extremely anxious. It was obvious that she had been forced into a corner. Tiffany disagreed. "Are you dumb? She's bringing the matter to court only to scare you. Even if we've made a mistake, do you really think that you've done something to cheat on her? Don't fall for her trick." The other party was astounded for a moment. What Tiffany just said seemed reasonable when she thought about it. I'm sorry, Miss Cullen, I was too anxious, but now that I've been found out by the public, I'm afraid that What's there to be afraid of? The more anxious you are, the easier it is for you to fall into her trap. All you need to do is to clarify that you didn't get married to Mr. Knowles. How will she sue you in court if she can't put forward any evidence? Tiffany only felt that the influencer was too mindless and too easily frightened, which deemed her useless. Tiffany turned her head and saw a car parked outside the shooting site. Daisy got out of the car moments after, and it seemed that she was not affected by her husband's affair at all. The crew members all gathered around and sent her their greetings. Daisy smiled. Thanks for the concern, guys, but I'm fine. She walked toward the director's team, and Shannon got up from his seat. Daisy, can you still shoot now, or do you need some time to adjust for the scene? Daisy replied with a smile. Thank you for being so considerate. I'm fine, and I can start shooting now. The staff on the side could not help but sigh inwardly. She can still get into filming after what's happened. This is the professionalism and attitude that all actors should have, by showing the ability to exclude their personal emotions from work. Daisy looks so beautiful. I really don't know what Mr. Knowles was thinking. I really pity her. Everyone on the crew was very sympathetic to what Daisy had to experience. After all, everyone could see Knowles' care and love for Daisy when he was there on the set, which made it even more difficult for them to believe what he had done. Daisy went into the dressing room to apply her makeup, and James hurried after her. Daisy. He then went straight into the dressing room. What's going on? Did your husband cheat on you? He never paid much attention to the news, and he could not believe it when he heard everyone on the crew talking about it. Daisy was helpless. Can you speak any louder? No, how can you remain so calm after what happened? James thought of something. Where is Knowles? Where is he? I'll question him for you. She looked at the mirror calmly and said, all right, it's useless even if you were to go to him now. Let's put our best foot forward for today's shooting first. Don't forget that we'll share a scene together later. He was confused. Your husband cheated on you, and this is how you react to it? Yes, this is my reaction to the matter. Daisy got up slowly, put on her coat, walked out of the dressing room, and just so happened to run into Zafir. She was flustered. James came out right after her. No way, but why would he cheat? Upon seeing Zafir, James's expression dimmed instantly. Is this man thinking that a chance has presented itself before him because a problem has emerged in someone else's marriage? Zafir took a glance at Daisy. Are you sure that you can shoot today? She smiled and replied, of course. James crossed his arms. Assistant Director Gosling, you seem to care so much about others. Are you up to something? Zafir frowned. Mr. Tell, have I offended you on any occasion prior to this? You've never offended me. It's just that I don't really like you. As a gentleman, you shouldn't be thinking about anything else. Especially when Daisy is still married. Chapter 2305. Zafir scoffed. What would I have in mind? James chuckled too. You should know that best. Daisy bumped James with her elbow. Have you read the script? Don't affect my filming later. James turned his face away and did not speak. Daisy looked at Zafir. I'll prepare for the next scene with James. Zafir nodded. While James was leaving with Daisy, he turned his head to glance at Zafir. He caught his gloomy expression and felt an intense chill shooting up his spine. Geez, he's definitely not a gentleman. On the other side of things, the female influencer lost her job because of the public's opinions that were spreading on the internet. She went out to the convenience store downstairs to buy something but was kicked out by the owner, claiming she would not sell goods to mistresses who seduced other people's husbands. The female influencer felt aggrieved, so she could only put on a mask and leave in despair. Many of her neighbors in the apartment community recognized her, pointed at her, and ridiculed her blatantly. She's actually shameless enough to have the guts to leave her house during such a time. If I were to be her, I'd never dare to take another step out of my house for the rest of my life. If she's not thick-skinned enough, how could she set foot in someone else's marriage and even scam the husband for the wife's property? After all, Daisy's husband is one of the richest men to grace the surface of the earth. The influencer was so aggrieved that she wanted to cry and dashed straight into the building. A limousine was parked opposite the entrance of the apartment. Knowles lowered the car window and watched as the female influencer fled in shame. Are all the documents ready? Edison turned his head. Everything's ready. Knowles raised the car window slowly. Great, it's time for us to lure the mastermind behind her out into the light. The female influencer returned to her residence and saw that her door had been sprayed with red paint. Thinking of what happened to her, she became angrier and angrier. After getting into her apartment, she slammed the door ferociously. She walked back to her room, sat down in front of the computer, turned it on, and logged into her Twitter account. There were at least tens of thousands of direct messages that were swearing at her, but she never dared to check them out. If I knew it'd be this troublesome, I wouldn't have taken this job in the first place. I really didn't expect things to get so out of control. I originally thought that an S-list female celebrity like Daisy would take her marriage into account and would certainly act like any other artist by choosing to believe in her husband and then only file for a divorce in peace after the heat on the issue had subsided. If that's the case, even if I have to be torn apart by the internet, I'll just endure it for a while until everything returns to normal. But who knew that Daisy would do things the other way around and release such a huge blow to the media and public? If I don't go out there and clarify something about the bigamy, I'll no longer be able to stay in Zlokovia. The female influencer tweeted a post, claiming that she did not marry Mr. Knowles, that Mr. Knowles was not guilty of bigamy, and that she did not take any of Daisy's property. However, as soon as she released her statement, the netizens started commenting on her posts. #whore, are you using a 2G internet? Please go through what happened on Twitter over the course of the past few days. #. The homewrecker has finally come out from her den, and she's starting to distance herself from the affair. #. Why didn't you voice out righteously and sternly when you were cheating on someone else with her husband? #. The female influencer refreshed her newsfeed on Twitter and was instantly stunned. A screenshot of a marriage certificate with her name and registration date had been exposed, and the names found on the certificate belonged to her and Knowles. She subconsciously felt that she might have been framed by someone with accusations spreading on the internet. She continued to clarify on the internet that the marriage certificate was fake and that she was not married at all. But netizens did not buy it at all. And a user named Transparent posted a photo of her holding hands with a mysterious man when they were out shopping. The mysterious man in the photo had been concealed, but the user obviously had managed to direct a majority of the public against her, claiming that the man was Knowles. When that was coupled with the offensive bombardments from all the keyboard warriors, the female influencer was severely reprimanded. Chapter 2306. Reading the hurtful comments online, the influencer hugged her head. How could this be happening? She suddenly heard the doorbell ring and walked to the door. Who is it? Miss Larson, we are from a law firm and would like to speak to you. You can choose not to let us in, but you should know the consequences of being a no-show to court for a case. The woman's face went pale, and she started shaking. At Bassburg. Freya saw the news about Daisy and Knowles and immediately ran into the study. Colton. Colton jumped and closed his laptop. What's going on? She walked to the desk. Is what happened between Knowles and Daisy true? Colton put his hand to his forehead. Do you think it is? Freya frowned. Knowles doesn't seem like someone who would do that. Why ask if you trust him? She pressed her lips together and was going to say something when Colton got up and walked around the desk to get to her and hug her. They're fishing. I guess they're putting up a show together. Don't worry about them. After a long pause, Freya looked at him and asked, Have you changed Charm's diaper? He paused. I don't think so. They then heard Charmaine crying from the next room. Seeing how Colton rushed over to the baby's room, Freya couldn't help but laugh, because he was being a good dad. At that moment, Freya received a text. It was a notification about her entrance exam for the postgraduate of screenwriter literary from the Yarramore Academy of Film and Television. There had been a few notifications about this before, But she never replied to any of them after her pregnancy. Freya walked to the baby's room and stood at the door as she watched Colton play with Charmaine. It was a warm and wholesome moment. Charmaine fell asleep quickly in his arms. Colton looked at her and placed her back into her crib. Our daughter loves to sleep as much as you. Freya leaned on the door. She's still a baby. What is she going to do if not sleep? Colton walked over to her and rested his head on her shoulder. I'm sleepy now. Freya held his face up. Go rest then. He squinted and asked, really? She nodded. Colton carried her in his arms. You said so. At Emperon. After Waylon took over Colton's role in the company, Cameron had been at home for 3 days. Dee Dee had a new friend and was pretty much spending most of the time at the Bouchers. She was alone, and there wasn't much to do other than scroll through social media. When she saw the news about Daisy and Nolace, she sat up. What? Nolace cheated? And remarried? Why does it sound absurd? Where are they filming? Karelia? Cameron looked around, pondered, and sent Daisy a text. Cameron, are you there? Daisy was resting between filming. She was surprised when she received the message. Daisy, yes, what's going on? Cameron, I'm so bored. Do you need a bodyguard? Daisy almost spats the water she was drinking. Daisy, is my brother not spending time with you? Cameron, he's so boring and won't let me do anything. Dee Dee stopped playing with me because she has a new friend now. I'm bored out of my mind. Please let me go see you. I don't mind being a runner. Daisy, alright, but it's freezing in Karelia. Cameron, I've never experienced winter before. I'm coming. Cameron tossed her phone onto the couch and immediately went upstairs to pack her bags. Chapter 2307. After packing her bags, Cameron went downstairs, left a note, and left. Cameron took a plane to Karelia. Once she got out of the airport, she shivered in the cold wind and wrapped her clothes tighter around her. Damn, is it really so cold? She trembled as she took out her phone to call Daisy. A white car soon arrived at the airport, and she walked over to it after checking the license plate. She opened the door and sat down. Daisy saw that she only had a jacket on and was shocked. Didn't I tell you that it would be cold? Cameron rubbed her arms. I didn't know it would be that cold. I'm from a warm country. We don't have winter there. Daisy had to remove her down jacket and wrap it around her. You can have mine. I have more clothes on set. Cameron turned to look at her. What happened between you and Nolace? Daisy smiled. It's fake news. We're just acting. Daisy told Cameron about everything that happened, which made Cameron frown. How could that happen? Daisy looked down. That was the only way Nolly could fish that person. We're using their trick on them. Cameron nodded. He is pretty smart, but ruining his own reputation does sound like something he would do. The car arrived on set, and Cameron got out. That was the first time she was at a shooting set. Daisy walked toward the director. Mr. Fallon, my friend is here to visit. Shannon looked at her and nodded. All right. Cameron walked close to Daisy. This is the director? Daisy smiled and said, yes, let me introduce you to the crew. She did that, and the crew was very nice to Cameron because of Daisy. When Cameron saw the people in their costumes and the old street sets, she felt as though she was in the movie. James, who hadn't had his hair and makeup done, walked over. Friend of yours? Daisy glared at him. Don't get any ideas. She's my future sister-in-law. If Waylon found out that Cameron went to see her and hooked someone, he might just kill her. James smiled. Who do you think I am? A playboy? Daisy smiled. Fine. You're very loyal, okay? Cameron looked around curiously and wasn't listening to them at all. Daisy walked toward her and asked, Cameron, do you want to take a rest in the car? She paused, then nodded. All right. Daisy brought her to the trailer, Tiffany looked unhappy when she saw Daisy bringing another woman to the set. Everyone had to fight to get a role from Shannon, so was Daisy trying to slot someone in at the last minute? More importantly, Knowles was in a media circus, yet she didn't look like she cared. Daisy is still acting. Huh. She doesn't seem to care about Knowles. At that moment, she suddenly received a text from Sophie. You pushed me under the bus. You said that Daisy was just scaring me about the whole court thing, but the lawyers are at my door. I don't care anymore. Tiffany started panicking. If Sophie showed up in front of the media, she would come clean about not actually having a relationship with Knowles. She hadn't stolen someone's husband or gotten married. It was all a lie. Chapter 2308. A reporter asked, Miss Larson, you've been photographed with Mr. Knowles at the hotel and were naked. How do you explain that? Another reporter cut in. Now they've shown evidence, and Miss Vanderbilt has decided to take you to court. Are you trying to distance yourself, so you don't have to face the consequences? Sophie's face was pale as she balled up her fist. This really has nothing to do with me. I don't even know Mr. Knowles. A reporter asked, did he ask you to clarify things? Another chimed in. Are you being threatened? Sophie took a deep breath and clenched her jaw. I said no, I don't know him. Someone hired me to act out what happened at the hotel, to frame Mr. Knowles. The scene immediately fell quiet. The flashes continued to shine on her, and she couldn't run away. Sophie lowered her head in shame and started crying, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have framed Mr. Knowles, but I really don't know him at all. I'm not a homewrecker. I'm being framed. The reporters continued asking. You said someone hired you. Who was it? Sophie bit her lip. All I know is that she's an actress in a movie with Miss Vanderbilt. She asked me to take off my clothes and wait in the hotel room. She even got some reporters there. Once Mr. Knowles showed up, the rumors would spread. The reporters chattered among themselves. So, the homewrecker was someone else, and this woman was just a honey trap but messed with the wrong people? At that moment, someone got up on stage. I have the video surveillance recording of that night. I can prove that Mr. Knowles was wrongly accused. The man controlled the screen, and the footage was played. Everyone watched it unfold with the timestamp in sight. After Knowles went to the room, he knocked, then entered. He got out in less than a minute with Sophie rushing out and hugging onto his leg in a bathrobe. The reporters showed up at the moment. Anyone could tell that it was just a trap. The reporters immediately went into a frenzy. The man then exposed Knowles' text. Before Mr. Knowles went to room 6221, he received a text like this. Miss Vanderbilt had to stay in water for prolonged periods in winter because another actress wasn't cooperating. She almost drowned as a result of that. Mr. Knowles was looking into this when someone used it to lure him over to the hospital. That was how he fell for it. Mr. Knowles never gave an explanation before this because he was framed. The reporter looked at the man. Who are you? The man replied. I'm his lawyer. Mr. Lawyer, if it was a honey trap, does that mean Mr. Knowles didn't cheat? Why would Miss Vanderbilt announce to the public that he was remarrying? The man smiled. He did not remarry, and his wife, Miss Vanderbilt, did not lose trust in him. However, how would they make Miss Larson come out with the truth without doing so? Everyone was shocked. The influencer had set up a honey trap but destroyed herself. That was such a brilliant plan. Daisy had admitted that Knowles cheated and remarried and tried to sue the woman for trying to steal their money. That would definitely make the fake homewrecker panic. Chapter 2309. Sophie had gone against the princess of the Goldmann family. $7 million in reparations was not a small amount. To think of it, Daisy didn't sue her husband, only the other woman. If Sophie was the homewrecker and her husband had really cheated, they would be in a divorce proceeding instead, not just attacking the woman. Hashtag plot twist in the Knowles scandal. It was a honey trap. Hashtag. Hashtag the Vanderbilt, Knowles marriage disaster was all just an act. Hashtag. After the media got their articles out, all the netizens waiting for updates were shocked. However, some still didn't believe it was just a honey trap. Just when everyone was waiting for Daisy to comment, she posted a tweet with a photo. She was still wearing her wedding ring and had tagged Knowles. Hashtag my husband is such a good actor. Hashtag. Hashtag wow, it was just an act? Hashtag. Hashtag Daisy's husband, you tricked us. I was really worried that you had cheated. Hashtag I was thinking, why would such a loving couple suddenly have marital problems? It's all fake. Hashtag. Hashtag can't deny how good this plot twist was. I really believed them. Hashtag. Hashtag I really couldn't believe it, waiting for more updates. Hashtag. Meanwhile, everyone on set was shocked. Mr. Knowles was framed. He didn't cheat? No, Daisy already put out a statement and said they were just trying to make the influencer show her true colors. The surveillance footage and text that Mr. Knowles received were also exposed. It was all a honey trap. The crew looked at the message Knowles received and thought the number looked familiar. Hold on. Don't you think that number looks familiar? Tiffany walked into the storeroom to meet Zafir. He had his back facing her, so she couldn't see his expression. Why didn't you inform me? Tiffany clenched her jaw. I didn't know that Daisy would really bring things to court. I thought she was just trying to scare her, and since Knowles didn't cheat, there wouldn't be any evidence. That was what she assumed, but no one expected the lawyers to actually show up at Sophie's doorstep. Zafir slowly turned around and looked at her with a dark expression. Do you know the consequences of her clearing things up to the media? Tiffany started to panic. What should I do? Before she snitches you out, Zafir walked toward her and stopped in front of her. Admit what you did. What? Tiffany was stunned. Zafir looked at her. If you admit your wrongdoing and leave the movie, you'll be safe. If they find out the truth themselves, do you think you'll be able to stay in the entertainment scene? Tiffany's face turned pale. But, if I come clean, I still won't be able to stay. Zafir placed his hand on her shoulder. Admitting your faults and apologize, then leave the team. They won't put you in a tough spot. After you leave, all you need to do is find that woman and gag her. As long as she admits that she orchestrated everything and you're not related to any of this, your future won't be affected. Tiffany was shocked. Was that her only choice? Zafir could tell she was hesitating, so he touched her face with a cold hand. This is an escape plan I've figured out for you. You need to know that it's all for your own good. Chapter 2310. Tiffany's face turned red, and her heart skipped a beat. Zafir. Zafir looked like he was in love, but there was no warmth in his eyes. Don't worry, even if you can't work in this movie, you'll have a lot of new ones to come. I'll work with you because I think you're talented. Tiffany had already been mesmerized by his words and had lost her ability to think. Okay, I'll do as you say. Can I ask if you have a girlfriend? He calmly said, no. Tiffany was overjoyed because she had a chance. Don't worry, I'll speak to the director now and leave the set. As for Sophie Larson, I'll find a way to frame her for something. Tiffany suppressed the joy in her heart and left the room. Zafir maintained his smile. His eyes were cold as he pulled out a napkin to wipe the hand that touched her face, then tossed it in the trash. He stayed there for a while before leaving. Tiffany went to the set. Mr. Fallon. Shannon looked at her. Yes? Tiffany pressed her lips together. There's something I need to come clean about. Everyone gathered around and chattered. Shannon frowned. What is it? Tiffany said, I was the one who sent the text to Mr. Knowles the other day and asked him to go to room 6221. That was how he was framed, but he wasn't my target. My target was... Everyone was shocked. That's why I thought the number looked familiar. It was Tiffany's. But why would she do that? James walked over and crossed his arms when he heard that. You, did it? Shannon frowned. Tiffany, what is going on? She lowered her head and yelled. Because I hate Daisy. Daisy and Cameron showed up among the crowd at that moment and heard what she said. Daisy paused and looked at her. You hate me? Yes, I hate you. Tiffany looked at her and said out loud, I think you don't work as hard as everyone else, so I don't like that. That was why I wanted to play a prank on you. I admit that I was the one who texted Mr. Knowles, but I just wanted to create tension between you. I didn't know the woman would undress and that the reporters would show up. Daisy frowned but didn't speak. She didn't know Tiffany well enough and didn't interact with her a lot. However, Tiffany hated her because she had to work hard and thought Daisy didn't have to. Daisy glared at her. Miss Cullen, why did you decide to admit to what you did now? Tiffany paused, then casually said, because no matter what I do, I'll never be in the same position as you are in the entertainment world. I admit that I'm jealous, that you're more famous than I am and that you're better than me. However, I was wrong for doing what I did and will withdraw from this project. She admitted to her faults and said that she was jealous of Daisy's fame. Everyone thought that all she did was because she had a grudge against Daisy and not Knowles, and since she was going to withdraw from the project, it looked sincere. No one would think more about this. After a long silence, Shannon said, Is that your final decision? Tiffany looked down. I can't stay here any longer. Mr. Fallon, I apologize for my actions. I hope that you will accept my withdrawal.